25 MPs tell Home Secretary urgent reflection is needed after report on origins of Windrush scandal. 25 Black, Asian minority ethnic MPs have written to the Home Secretary telling that their framing of Britain's immigration legislations cannot be uncoupled from racism and the exclusion of people of color. The MPs were responding to the publication last month of a previous suppressed Home Office report on the origins of the Windrush scandal, which highlighted how 3 decades of British immigration legislation between 1950 and 1981 were designed, at least in part, to reduce the number of people with black or brown skin who were permitted to live and work in the UK. So you see, what happened concerning this Windrush scandal between 1950 to 1981 shows you that this policy was targeted against people with black or brown skin who even have the right to live in the UK. So what does it tell you? It tells you that at the end of the day, the country that colonized most countries in the world and claims to be one of the champions of democracy, at the end of the day, they are not really champions of democracy. It shows you that at the end of the day, all that glitters is not gold. In advance of the new government's border security, asylum and immigration bill, the MPs called for urgent reflection on how the narrative around legislations could become an enabling environment for racism. The letter to Yves Cooper, written by the Labour MP Cleveland Levis and signed by Labour and Independent MPs, calls for action to acknowledge the links between racism and hostile migration policies and urges a commitment to building a fair and compassionate system which ensures that another Windrush scandal cannot happen again. So these ministers are just asking that these policies should be, any immigration legislation should be properly investigated, well constructed, that they don't want to experience another Windrush scandal again in the UK, based on what they experienced already between 1950 to 1981. So truth be told, these countries that claim that they are champions of democracy, if you see the conditions, how people's human rights are being trampled upon, all in the name that they want to remove them out of their country, you begin to understand that these people are not really champions of democracy. And African leaders are not stupid. They are saying these things. That is why you see that sometimes when some African wicked leaders want to trample on the rights of their citizens, they don't listen to the people in the West, because they know that most of these countries in the West, they are not practicing what they are preaching. That is why you see that some of these leaders pay deaf ears to these Western counterparts. Because if you can imagine that the country that colonized most of the countries in the world, this kind of thing can happen in their country between 1950 to 1981, and they are still implementing similar policies like that, that is making these MPs to rise up, and they are calling for the Home Secretary to change it, then it is appalling. It means that even after all these years, nothing has really changed. It means that UK as a country have a whole lot to do when it comes to migration and immigration legislations.